Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Phil Carew Show 2.0. I have a very special guest here today, Mr. Harry Flexman, the Fight Dad. Fight Dad. Oh my goodness, I'm so honoured to have Fight
Thank,
Dad on the Phil Carew Show.
thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah, it's great to be here. And interestingly, when I started Fight Dad, I saw it as a bit of an identity that I'd say pretty much all of us have inside of us, where obviously we're interested in martial arts, train martial arts, teach martial arts. And so there's the fight element, right, in its rawest form. But we also kind of stand up for what we believe in and, try and look after the little guy. And most of us are like anti-bullying and step in when we think something's wrong, stand up and speak our mind and go, hang on a second, we need to do something about this. So that's fighting for what's right. And then the dad element, it became obvious to me when I became a father. So that was like the instant trigger. But then thinking about it as well, whoever you are and whatever you're doing, you're in a leadership position for someone else near to you, someone else around you, whether that is your kids or your friends or your colleagues or co-workers or your team at work or your family members. There are elements of leadership, elements of being a father figure, whether you kind of know it or see it that way or not. And so I was like, Fight Dad, awesome. That's pretty universal, but has like several layers of meaning to it. And I've been interested to see how I don't identify myself as the Fight Dad, but other people do. So that's fine. But I really think that all of us have an element of that inside of us, and it's important to recognize that. And encourage it too.
No, that's brilliant. It's one of those things, Harry. I've also like to mention as well. You're going to be part of the Festival of Martial Arts, I hear.
Yes, yeah, that's the plan this year. I'm only doing a couple of kind of publicly open seminars this year. And one of them is the Festival of Martial Arts. It's going to be in Shepton Mallet, which is quite close to where I'm based in the southwest. And first of all, it looks like an amazing event to be part of, especially to be part of the first one, which is cool. And I know Matt State a little bit. He's organizing him and Luci Delgado. So I'll be at the festival, sharing some good cheer, some inappropriate jokes, and fun ways of training Filipino martial arts, which is my, I don't want to say speciality, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite. Yes. It's the one I've been obsessed with for the longest. So anything else I ever learn, I try and turn that back in towards my practice and my teaching and helping people understand the Filipino martial arts. It's too grand when you say it out loud, isn't it?
Yeah, of course,
it's like my interpretation of it,
For the newbies out there, what would you say, sort of like part of your journey? I know a lot of people when I've spoken to them, sort of past guests, it's usually through childhood or through some form of life experience that have sort of expanded and gone into sort of a pathway where they've realized, what, this is the art for me, because there's always different sort of martial arts that most people sort of gone to, that the go-to. And I think there's an element of, there's different things that you've tried, because I know those who know you as the Fight Dad, Harry Flexman, you've got a very varied martial arts background, very accomplished in these areas. As I've read, but other people out there, the newbies, what would you say, for those to try? Because I know there's youngsters now, they're starting with like kickboxing, and then they lead into sort of martial arts as the Philippine martial arts. Because, I was speaking to some instructors of the Philippine martial arts, and I know their policy is so different over in the Philippines as it is over here, because there's certain things that you can do and you can't do. And I know that obviously even as a father or even as a parent, I think obviously, do you think it's down to sort of culture wise as well as you would have noticed? Because obviously with martial arts, there's an element of weaponry that's involved in some aspects of the arts, as well as it is open hand. What is your sort of insight on that?
Yeah, I can't speak for all of the
Yeah.
Filipino martial arts, because it's like an umbrella term, a bit like karate, and there
Yes.
are several very different flavors and styles of karate, and it's similar with Filipino martial arts. But as a principle, it's generally going to be weapons led or weapon concept based, because if you believe all the stories of the origins, it's from they're an island nation, and it was all the tribal fighting. So what elements did we have available to defend our tribe and potentially attack the neighboring tribe, or team up with the neighboring tribe and repel other invaders? And so the principle of weaponry becomes as universal as possible. So am I holding a thing which gets me more reach advantage? Am I holding a thing which is an impact-based weapon, in which case I need to have mass and momentum behind it? Am I holding something which is sharpened, has an edge on it? And my camera's gone blurry. Let me see if I can fix this tech. Spare with yourselves, it's all good.
Yes. Yeah, you're fine here.
There, we better? Yes, we're better.
Yes.
Years of being on this camera thing, and I still mess it up every now and then. It's all good.
No, that's
yeah,
all
so
right.
those are the questions. Is it going to be, does it give me a reach advantage? Is it impact based, in which case I need to generate momentum and have space to swing it hard and fast? Or is it an edge weapon, in which case you still might need to swing it hard and fast, but you have an element of pressure and then drawing back? As you know, if you've sliced any vegetables, any raw meat yourself with a sharp knife, it's not always just like a straight chop down, put down and slice back. So the mechanics become slightly different, but those principles become almost universal. And we see this question asked quite a lot, which is, do the empty hands teach the weapon, or does the weapon teach the empty hands? And it's very much a chicken and egg situation, where both help the other in a cycle. And let's not get too smart about chicken and egg, because obviously it was the egg, because dinosaurs had eggs before chickens even evolved. But let's settle the chicken and egg debate while we're on it right now. But yeah, no, both enhance and support each other, because say for a weapon, you need to be faster, and because the reach is so much longer, your footwork and timing needs to be so much better than for empty hands, where you can slip a straight punch with a small movement of your head, and that's it, you missed. But if you're trying to swing out of the arc of a stick or a sword, you need to move a lot further or have a lot more time and perception. So they both educate each other. And in terms of your actual question, I think that was related around a core, or a core basis of what to train in first. And only really judging from my own journey and those of my students and the other people that I've got to know about their journey, you can be really lucky, and the first art you train can really grab you by the mind and the heart and go, this is for me, amazing. And if you find that, fantastic, congratulations, and train that to a point where you got to a pretty good competency in what that art offers.
Yes.
Before starting to branch out and go, well, actually, this art is fantastic and specialized towards this area, but perhaps what's missing from here that could be enhanced by some other specialism? Is it grappling? Is it weapons? Is it the psychological elements of self-defense? Is it combatives attitude versus combat sport attitude? But only once you've got a good basis in the first art that's really grabbed you. Because if you don't know the most of the art, then you don't know what it is or isn't missing. That makes sense. There becomes unknown unknowns, which are hard to predict because you don't know what they are. So
that's very true.
For me, the first art that I trained in was Capoeira, which is the Brazilian breakdance. martial art to music, which was excellent for rhythmicity and body control, because you have to really be able to control your body really well. And the style of capoeira I did was quite close and quite low to the ground. So you actually did have to react to your training partner. So if they're throwing a kick at you, if you do nothing, it's going to make contact. So you have to move and flow out of the way. And that was really cool. Then I trained Muay Thai, which was absolutely fantastic. The other end of the spectrum in terms of contact, Muay Thai, very brutal, kind of hardcore. It really opened my eyes, and I was like, oh, I can hit people. Ooh, I can hit pads. I can refine my kicking technique a little bit.
Yes.
And suddenly the noise the pad makes is not a slap anymore, but a thud. And my pad holder goes, whew, and you think, yes, that's a bit better. Cool. So I loved the brutality and directness of Muay Thai. And I also loved the flowing and reactions of capoeira. And then when I accidentally tried Filipino martial arts, which I'd viewed as an outsider as that stick twirly kind of Morris dancery, wishy-washy, flowery, overcomplicated thing. And I tried it, and I was very fortunate to have an excellent teacher, Matthew Teasdale, Team Phoenix in Newcastle upon Tyne. If you're ever in the Northeast, go and train at his club. He's amazing. He showed me about the combination of the two things I already loved. So it had the flow, it had the brain-body puzzle, and it also has the brutality and direct application, and also has a combat sport application side, and also can have a self-defense combative side. And it has the potential to tick all three of those pillars of martial arts. So there's art for self-expression and personal development and coordination and mind development. There's combat sport, which is a kind of fun, safe way of fighting your mates, which is amazing. I love that part. And then the self-protection elements, where you'll probably take the simplest technical parts but apply them under the greatest pressure, physical and psychological. So it has the potential to cover those. And for anyone listening, I'm not saying that other arts don't have that, but this one's my favorite. So yeah. That was a long answer to a short question. A good question.
No, I'm impressed, because with the different arts, there's a lot of elements there. That is to say that with as a pioneer of a lot of people probably mentioned his name over the years, Bruce Lee. With all the different martial arts that he's seen, I wouldn't say it was more of like weaknesses. I think it's more a combination of strengths of different arts combined together. And he even involved fencing with the footwork, and even ways of like boxing. And I remember there was one with the Muay Thai, when I know it was on sort of film based, but I think in reality it's also good to see different parts of different martial arts, where they combine the sort of the movements, where as myself, when I was experiencing practicing Muay Thai myself, as well as yourself, with like the knee strikes, the elbows, with all the 8 limbs, it was originally known as 9, but they don't use that as the headbutt. It's more of the 8 limbs, not the 9.
Yes, it stayed in Lethway though, right?
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. And I like the history of the martial arts, because a lot of the time I think the involvement with people when they get into a martial arts, because they like the look of martial arts, the look of it, the uniform, everything, all the different aspects of reasons of why people do it. But also, I think overall, fundamentally, I would agree that I think most people out there that do a martial arts is because, number one, to keep fit, and keep fit. Secondly, more form of a belonging, like a community based, where people are coming together. They're not on their own. You've got a like-minded people that do it for the right reasons. They go in there. You're not going in there to, get yourself set up to do some sort of an illegal activity where you want to go around beating people up. Whereas back in the old days, martial arts as regarded as a form of defense and combat. and most of these martial arts, um, I didn't realize how brutal they were. Historically, all these different things, we've toned it down, as we would
Yeah,
say.
and I think the level of that as well depends on your culture of where you live. And hey, Rush, nice to see you, man. Yeah, it depends on the culture of where you live as to how as to the exact context of where you want or what you want to get from martial arts. Because
Yes,
it might literally be that I'm about to go into a war zone,
yes,
and so or a very risky place for tourists, and
yes,
so I need to up my awareness, and I need to practice my kind of target hardening and pre-contact cue skills,
yes,
and I actually really need to focus on that right now, and that's relevant for that person. Or it could be that
yeah,
their job puts them in harm's way every time every time they work,
yes,
and
yes. True.
that's what they need to get from martial arts training. And so there'll be, I think it's hard as an instructor to constantly offer all of the full gamut of what martial arts has the potential for. And
Yes,
it's like ice cream flavors. If you appeal to everybody, then you don't really appeal to anyone, because you kind of this like gray flavor, a little bit of every flavor, and it turns out to be
that's
a
it.
bit weird. But if you're a very specific flavor, then the people who need that and want that are going to gravitate towards you and go, "This is exactly what I need."
That's it.
And that's why I think it's brilliant. And there's no, I don't believe anyway, there's no conflict between we are martial arts for combat sport, or we are martial art for tradition, or we are martial art for self-defense. And I think they're all complementary. And so that's brilliant. And being obvious about why you teach it, and the focus and the context of what you teach and how you do it, I think that helps the students, the new prospective students, help make their mind up and go, what is it that I need right now? Do I
That's it.
need a sense of community, belonging, an activity that's going to keep me fit, make me stronger without being bored at the gym? Or
Yes.
do I like the idea of being able to punch my mates a bit? It might be a bit taboo, but to be honest, I do, so that's okay. There's
No,
a
no, that's true. That's true because everyone's got different reasons for what, but I think it's also a good thing that it's no longer considered as more of a commercialized thing either. Because I know when we portray it, I think sometimes even the younger audience and even some of the older audience, whichever sort of audience that it goes out to out there, that's what going to be watching this and listening to this, I think it's quite refreshing to hear that martial arts is not just regarded as what you see in the films, because you get more and more people going out and they go, look, I'd like to learn a martial arts, that's more based on their what they feel that is suitable for them. Because like you mentioned, there could be anything where they think, right, okay, this kind of martial arts is suited to in my kind of lifestyle or my line of work or what I'm doing, and if it works and it helps me, why not? And this is it. You get these things where sometimes also, um oh, nice to hear about all different styles of martial arts. I used to do and teach wushu. Oh yes, very nice. Wushu. Oh my goodness, yeah. It's also known, for people like Jet Li involved, or they did the wushu as well. Yeah, no, thanks, Rash. Thanks for your contribution. And there, no, yeah, this with martial arts. What would you say was like the sort of biggest challenge for you from transitioning from being a student to being more like a full-time instructor? Hello, Sean. You're right there.
um, well, firstly, I'm not a full-time instructor.
Right.
My physical in-person school is a part-time class,
Part-time. Wow. Okay.
so I have a regular day job as well.
Right. Wow.
And I'm a dad, and I teach in person, and I run fightdad.com. I haven't even plugged 20 minutes in. I haven't even plugged my website. I mean, I've been trying to subtly get product placement in there.
No, that's all right. Yeah, because the
But
reason why I mentioned the transition of this is because I think it's good to get this out there. I think sometimes people perceive what they see. It's only what they see, you know, because if they see something and they go, right, you got all these courses, this, it's good to hear something like this, you know, live, because and then a lot of people, you know, if they don't do enough research and like look into it, or they don't contact you personally or email you or anything like that, the show is to actually sort of get this is how authentic this is, you know, with the show, and it's good to hear it from yourself as well, because I think sometimes people don't realize the reality of it, because yes, you are a dad and it's part-time, you know, it's not always going to be physically possible where you're going to be, you know, when when you're a father and you're a parent, you know, you and you have all these other things, these courses, I think it's good that you've got these different things on there, so while you're physically doing what you need to do as a parent, as well as I am, like as a dad myself, people have also got to understand that you have a life as well, like you and I. You know, it's right. You're not going to be there continuously, you know, in a dojo doing this 12 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, you know, 5 days a week, you know, and it, you know, it's good to hear, you know, to hear that, you know, it's you're able to balance certain things as well.
yeah, it's
What is it like to balance, you know, because I don't think people realize, you know, with you know, as being fight dad Harry Flexman, you know, is there any sort of things of where how you could sort of even put it out there for people that that are in a similar position where they're like, oh, how do I fit this in? You know, it's not always an easy balance, is it?
no. And I basically have zero social life.
Bless you.
And like very little downtime, and it's actually something that I have to work hard on purposefully finding time to do nothing. And oh, hey Duncan, that's a great question, man, so we'll keep that up, and yeah, we'll definitely address that, I think. Yeah, finding myself, I have to like force myself to have downtime, and you'll see just here is one of my awesome Lego models, ages
Yes.
9+. That's the pirate ship. That was a lot of fun. And so that is one of the things that I kind of use as, right, I'm not doing day job, I'm not doing dad stuff, I'm not doing online, I'm not teaching, I'm not training, I'm not weightlifting, I'm not going for a run to try and keep my fitness up, I'm not meal planning, I'm not editing content, editing videos. Man, editing videos takes such a long time. And so if you see a content creator and you're like, oh, they're only producing one video a week,
no,
you might not have much of an idea as to how much effort goes into that video. There's
of course,
planning, scripting, filming, editing, and mastering, making sure the audio is right, adding in any extra kind of images or sound effects or anything like that, thinking of a thumbnail, thinking of a title that's going to draw people in, launching all of that. And then sometimes you'll do this awesome video and then it will get like 5 views. And then other times you'll just throw out this video that you think, that was a bit rubbish, and it'll get 500,000 views. And I don't know why that is. So there's a...
I often think that's myself, you know, even on lives, because I look back, I've myself, between you and I, we've probably noticed this, that we get these surprises from the ones that we don't edit, and the ones that we do edit, they look back and we think, how comes that's just got, and then when we look back, there might be some sort of element of the authenticity in it. This is why sometimes people love that, because, you know, like when they do, what's the best way of putting it? Just to throw it out there for the listeners and the audience out there. You know, when you have bloopers on films, like the Jackie Chan, old school Jackie Chan films and Deadpool, you know, at the end of the credit.
Yeah, that's like almost the best bit, isn't it?
And that's probably why, Harry, you know, and sometimes it's good to leave certain stuff in, even though when you think it's like as a bonus footage as well as it is, you know, the edited stuff. Because I think the element of it is the unedited part. which is joyful for people to think, you know what? There was a bit where, like for example, now you and I would be discussing something, and then you'd be like, oh, I didn't think that was going to get that kind of question. That was quite a good question, and it will not throw you off guard, but it will make it more interesting. Like juicy questions, like even like Duncan here. Like, do we have toned things down too much? Do we think not the brutality, more the acceptance of the brutality? So, yeah, what would you say? Your insight on that?
It's a good question, and my kind of martial arts presentation and teaching style right now has removed a lot of the brutality from being right in your face. And for me, that's been a progression and a journey. Because right at the start, I was kind of intimidated by it because everyone else was much better than me. And it's like, I suddenly realized that all of these, random, small, innocuous looking people on the street could probably have the potential to completely kill me, basically, without any outward appearance being a warning sign. And then gradually, as I got better, I was like, starting to get that slightly cocky mindset of I could probably handle myself and, have be calm and polite at all times, but always have a plan to kill everyone in the room and that kind of saying and stuff like that. And
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
swung just a little bit too far, particularly with the Filipino arts and any other weapon art. Now I know Duncan is a historical European martial arts expert, so he does sword fighting. So he does broadsword and longsword, and I'm going to mess it up if I say any more sword names. Long, sharp, pointy bits, and he's really good. And so he trains with the steel trainers and much harder armor, whereas we tend to train with padded sticks, and therefore you need a lot less armor. So there's a lower barrier to entry. You have to buy less stuff before you can start, basically.
Of course,
that's part of the reason for me doing it that way is to make it more accessible. And if you want a flavor, go to fightdad.com, and there's a button right at the top that says, yes, get me these free courses. There are 2 free courses. One is on stick fighting solo drills, you can do on your own, don't even need a proper stick, let alone a training partner. And the other one is on Hubbard flow drill, which is like an empty hands flow drill. It's got flowing elements to it. And that's recorded live at one of the seminars that I taught last year. And you're welcome to those, totally free. But yeah, if you're using a steel blade all the time and you're thinking, right, I just want to get the tip of the sword into my opponent's neck. Yes, that was perfect. That would definitely kill them. So there's a direct addressing the brutal element, the brutality part of it. And it's the same with Filipino martial arts, because there's a lot of elements to do with knife fighting, knife defense, because in my opinion, you kind of need to understand how to use a weapon to be able to better defend against it. Because once it becomes natural in your hand, you understand its effective ranges, you understand any motion that happens before the big obvious movement. And you understand, particularly if you practice drawing or accessing your weapon, if you have it in your pocket or on your belt line somewhere, or if you have it in a sheath behind you, you start to understand what that motion is of the hand goes to the hip, and then it's suddenly holding something. So as a defender, you can start to perceive that and go, his hands disappeared. This one is a distraction, like a magician. Look over here, stab. We're done. We do knives too.
Duncan.
Yeah, I know, Duncan. Yeah, we train that too, mate. It's good
brilliant
stuff. But so there's a choice for the instructor of how directly you address that brutality, and because it's kind of built into a weapon martial art, it's built in. If you address it, think about it, talk about it all the time, it can get a little bit kind of oppressive and overbearing, and very much serious and kind of po-faced. And I've trained in some places where they almost became like a knife cult, where if they do their live blades, their sharp blades, then they weren't allowed to put them away until it had tasted blood. And I was like, you're not a Viking, mate. You're just Steve from accounting, and you're training martial arts. This context is kind of way out of line with your context. You know, you're not actually a army ranger. Let's all calm down here. But for him, that was the way he wanted to train martial arts. Now, it wasn't for me, so I moved on to a different place, and that's fine, you know, as long as you don't actually hurt someone.
Oh wow! My
so
goodness.
yeah, with the brutality of weapons and martial arts in general, I mean, all arts exist to cause harm to your enemy.
Yeah.
Don't they? So any striking art, boxing, what is the goal? Knockout, technical knockout, stoppage. So you want to punch someone in the head and the body as hard as you can until they can't fight anymore or are unconscious. Okay, well, that's pretty brutal. Muay Thai, same thing. What's the nicest way of getting a stoppage in Muay Thai? Maybe leg kicks? Maybe. But they're still then going to kick you in the leg till you can't stand up anymore. Kind of brutal. Grappling, I'm going to throw you on the floor and so you spike your head and break your neck. Kind of brutal. Ground submissions, I'm going to get in a position where I can break all your joints or choke you unconscious and hold it until your brain stops getting oxygen. Kind of brutal. Weapon stuff.
Yes.
I'm going to use this impact weapon and cave your head in because that's protecting my family and my tribe.
Wow.
But you see where it can go. There is that brutality built in. And so for me, where I am right now in my life, my existence, my context, where I live, I need to counterbalance that with bright colors and with humor and with bad jokes and lightheartedness and fun, because I spent enough time in the dark place of martial arts being a killing art. I don't want to be there anymore, and that's fine. So students and other instructors who are attracted to that way of being, cool. We're gonna join together. We're all gonna be in the Fight Dad Tribe Facebook group. You should join it. It's really nice. It's good. We support each other. And those who are opposed to that, well, great. They're going to go somewhere else, and that's fine because we don't waste each other's time. Because if I said, yeah, my school caters for all approaches, or my courses will teach you artfulness, sport fighting, and self-defense, but then they get in there and they find out that they don't, well, they're going to be annoyed. It's going to have wasted their time. I'll have, reduced my status in their eyes, and they're more likely to leave me a bad review or complain about me or just be disappointed, and we'll have all wasted our time. And that's pretty disingenuous. So if you're an instructor or you're thinking about being an instructor, be brave and be definite about who you are, what you offer, and how you train it. And if it's lighthearted and fun, then great, say that, and you'll attract the right people. If it is super serious and you're much more interested in combative applications, great, say that, and you'll attract the right people. So that's
what would you say as well? I just thought I'd sort of make this official now, because I'd like to sort of put it out there, because I know sort of other fellow martial artists, even like yourself, because as a father, how would you say that there'd be, as a starter, to be able to sort of like the safeguarding of things? Because there was a quite controversial thing where, I'm not going to even mention it because obviously legal purposes. There was an actual lady and their partner. They're in prison now, and I think even Lucci and Delgado and everyone else that's sort of that's aware of who this is, and everyone else on the martial arts sort of spectrum and industry. How would you say, what your sort of insight on this? Because I've got a very strong viewpoint in regarding sort of safeguarding, sort of not just children, but any people that could be in a position of a vulnerable position. Because obviously, as a person instructing somebody or anybody that's instructing somebody in person, would feel that, we are the ones sort of promoting safety, and sort of self-defense, whereas others have manipulated that position to be able to use it for their own personal gain in the most sort of unspeakable ways. What's your insight on that?
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. And it's really important not to minimize what they did, because it's despicable. And my heart goes out to all of their victims.
Yes.
It's going to be something where, if you have like a position of power that's available, because as a martial arts instructor, whether you think it or not, you're in a position of power, because you're the one stood at the front, you're the one they look up to, whether you're teaching adults, vulnerable or not, and children of whatever age, you're in charge, right?
Exactly.
You stood at the front, you have a position of power, and they respect you and look up to you and do what you say.
Yeah.
And where there's an opportunity for a position like that, there's unfortunately going to be a percentage of, I see Duncan. Yeah, unfortunately, there's going to be a percentage of people who wish to find any position of power in order to abuse that power, which is horrible. And
yes.
I don't want to say in public how I'd react if I found that anyone I knew was in the victim situation like that. I'm so sure many of us feel the same way. That
yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any more on that. I think probably wise, but it is really important to have safeguarding processes and structures in place. And with the case that you mentioned, my understanding was that they did, but that they were they like each other's referee or each other's officer?
Yes.
So those two individuals managed to hide it for however long it was, a long time, which kind of makes me feel sick. So I don't like it. But if you're a parent and you're considering sending your child to a martial arts class, then well, when I'm thinking about this from my own kid's perspective, I'd want to be there and watch every class.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's important. I think it'd
in
be
those
important, Harry.
interactions, I wouldn't want to leave them like alone with alone at the school, let alone alone with an individual, because that's not it's not done anyway.
I think the reason why I mention this, Harry, I think it's the reason why, because as a parent like yourself and as a father like myself, do you think there should be something put in place like they have for carers, when they get struck off for doing something unspeakable to people that are in a vulnerable sort of position, that can't speak for themselves, in that position, and that there should be something put in place now for people that where they can come out. And because I know that, okay, there's sort of DBSs and stuff like that, but there must be something where sanctioned, where, I know all parents would sort of vouch for this, even no matter whether you're a martial artist or non-martial artist. Now, if you go to anything all the way across the board, across the spectrum, doesn't matter what it is, any form of activity, I know there's safeguarding sort of measures in there, but look at what happened there. Those two, they were doing that. There must be something where if something was to happen, or as has already happened, these type of people, they need to be struck off to the point of where, where
they can never be employed in a position of power again.
Yeah, in that type of position. Because, if you're instructing someone of whatever level or whatever particular type of activity or industry, you should not be able to be put in that position where they think, you know what, I got a slap on the wrist, I'm going to go back and do whatever I need to do somewhere else because it's not right, and I think it's a strong point. I thought I'd make it clear, Harry, because I know, you're as father like I am, and as a parent. And I think with anyone out there, most of us would agree, I'd like to sort of start something, and, be great if you could sort of support and anybody else out there, other fellow martial artists in the schools or anyone out there. I'm just putting it out there now because I just want to be able to put a campaign out to stop these type of things from happening to anybody. And I feel that quite strongly, Harry, because, and I could sense it with yourself that I think you'd probably no doubt second to none without having to sort of even, fathom.
As you can tell, I'm basically holding on to my emotions right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, mate. It's now I don't know all of the details of that couple's individual case of whether they'll appear on the sex offenders register. I think they probably should do.
Yes.
Because of what they were convicted of. And then this is the tricky thing about martial arts. It's basically an unregulated industry.
And this is what I mean. This is what I mean, Harry. I think it should.
You could change your name and change your art name, and then show up to a community hall and go, "I want to teach a class," and they go, "Great, let's see your black belt certificate." There you go. And then, where's the next step in that kind of regulation? Unless, we do have some kind of recognized database of instructors who aren't complete. Am I allowed to swear on your show?
Yeah.
No, it's all right. Won't do. Instructors who aren't complete cunts. So let's have that kind of layer of check. But and that's a step towards regulation, which is really good, because otherwise it's self-regulation that only gets found out if there's an insurance claim against you. Well, so there's stuff we should have in place, first aid training, risk assessment. They're not waivers, but they're like acceptance of the activity you're doing does have risks associated with it. And you've got to be able to show that you have taken all best practices to not be negligent in what you're teaching, how you're teaching it, the environment in which you're teaching it. Have you checked the floor for sharp things? Is there stuff going to fall off the walls on you training outside? Is there dog poo in the park? Is that part of your risk assessment? With those things, do you even have insurance? Do you have member-to-member insurance, or do you have instructor indemnity insurance? Do you have public liability? All of that stuff. They only really get found out if someone makes a claim against you. And then you go, oh, I don't have those things in place. Or if you're smart, like everyone listening should be, look, I do have those things in place. Here's my risk assessment. Here's my up-to-date first aid training. Here's the lesson plan we were doing for the day. Here, look, I've assessed the injury risk of all the things we're doing and put in ways of mitigating it. So if we're doing let's say we're doing weapon sparring, weapon sparring, pretty big injury risk just on its own. So I go, well, my mitigation factors are everyone has a head guard, and that protects your eyes and your face from, minor lacerations and stuff, and protects your head a little bit. But there's still the potential for kind of brain wobble. So everyone uses the same type of lightweight padded sticks. Cool. So that reduces the momentum going into your head. You still feel it as a hit, but it's much less injurious. And we go, right, okay, but you can still break your fingers with those things. And go, okay, that's fine. Everybody has gloves as well, which are armored gloves. And that's my risk assessment and my mitigation. And that's a reasonable minimization of the risks involved. And if every participant has acknowledged that there are risks involved, it's not a waiver. It doesn't sign away any of his statutory rights. In fact, if you make one of these, you have to explicitly say this does not affect your statutory rights, because it's illegal to affect someone's statutory rights. But you only get found out if you get in hot water, because there's no gatekeepers to that apart from I have my black belt certificate.
Well, this is it, Harry.
And it's very it's very like piratical in a way. It's very anarchistic,
Yeah.
and I like that element, but then it is also massively unregulated. And in
Yeah.
the rest of our society, particularly in the UK, where almost everything is regulated to very high standards, I'm quite proud of that as a Brit. You know, like, did you know I've got the best road sign lettering in the world, and everyone else copies ours, or it's worse.
Well,
They're perfect size letters, and you can see them from a mile off, and the color contrast and the font is just. So there we go. We talked about Lego and road sign letters. But yeah, those standards are usually very high in our country. You know, there's food quality standards, there's healthcare standards, and whether they're met or not, healthcare funding is a different topic. Maybe we won't get into that today. And you know, you have to have a driving license, and your car has to pass the MOT, and you have to be insured to drive a car. But to be a martial arts instructor, you just have to convince someone. I don't know. Could you offer? You can offer a paid martial arts instructor in a park without having to convince anyone anything, if you wanted to.
This is what I mean, Harry. I think there needs to be something put in place, because there's so many people, like even Duncan mentioned on here. He said, you know, these McDojos, you know, people where that. I think there's so many sort of aspects of martial arts all the way across the board. Now, I know there's a lot of well-known sort of martial arts schools and instructors where they're doing their thing, but then it becomes something where, you know, it creates this kind of stigma from certain people where they're not sure where to go because of these martial arts. You know, there's a lot of good martial arts, and there's also equally bad as well, where it promotes something where you think, but is this what it should actually be? Because there's a lot of fellow martial artists out there that will look at this and think, we'll all frown upon that, and is this really what we should be promoting? You know, and then when it comes to like an actual life skill, when something comes into it and they're like, are they qualified? No. Have they done this? Yeah. And then you look further into their background, you think, oh my goodness, was this supposed to happen? And then, like, you're right, you know, and I think the reason why I'm saying this, I think because I hear a lot of people, they say, oh, there should be something done. They should do this, they should do that. I said, well, okay, I'm the first one to come out with it then. So if I'm, you know, rather than just talk about it, I'd like to sort of see where this leads, you know, where I can sort of help people where, regardless of what martial arts you're in, if there is some sort, I know there's quite a vast amount of whoever is out there that's listening, any of you martial arts organizations, governing bodies or councils, feel free to contact me, because I'd like to be able to sort of put something in place with all of you for all different martial arts, you know, where we can protect our fellow students and even instructors as well, alike, you know, anyone that can be potentially in a position that's vulnerable.
And it varies by art as well. And you've got some of the more kind of longer term established martial arts, say Taekwondo, where I'm going to get this wrong, put my foot in it. They have 2 or 3 large governing bodies, and then the schools belong to one or the other, and they're kind of like an Olympic sport as well. And some of them are involved with Sport England, which is Sport England like a non-governmental organisation, an NGO? I can't remember, but like Sport England being the larger kind of more official organisation that's in, and that's cool and everything. And I've seen with one of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu organizations, they've now also been recognized through Sport England as part of their and some of their programs. So they've got like coaching and instructor training programs that are in there. And if your school becomes a member of the I can't remember what it's called. I have to write you afterwards and tell you what the organization's called. But the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school kind of owners organization, it's a not-for-profit thing, where if you join them, then they make sure you have all of your stuff in place, all of your insurance, all your risk assessments, and that you're getting good instructor training, and you're keeping up to date on all of your continuing professional development, and that your member-to-member insurance is properly done. And that's a really good step towards legitimizing BJJ schools, which is awesome. And
Yes.
yeah, I want to see that for lots of different types of independent school as well, because Filipino martial arts is a smaller pool of instructors and practitioners to start with, and then many different styles and approaches. And yeah, that will be very handy to have something that draws people together, or at least there's some centralized, list of approved instructors and their art, or something along those lines.
Yes.
And yeah, I love that you're taking the steps towards that. That's really cool. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Harry, because the reason why I mentioned it is because as well as a parent, as a father, no doubt you'd probably feel the same way as I do, and I felt quite strongly about it, and I thought, well, let's not just talk about it, let's do something about it, and making those steps to be able to do that, because there's such it's so open at the moment, like you said, unlike all the other sort of organizations that have been regulated. Why not put something in place now and there where, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, we'll do it. Oh, someone's already doing it now. I said, well, why have we not heard about it then? Why is no one doing it? Because it's easier to just put some brush under the carpet, let the law deal with it. I went, well, let the law deal with it. Why don't we have something there where the law and something else that's sanctioned, where they can put something in place where they'll say, well, look, there's a section in this bit here for martial artists and these governing bodies. If you don't follow these other areas, this and this, and if you've done this, you can't go back.
I know that there's one organization which is catering to a wide eclectic mix of arts, and that's the British Martial Arts and Boxing Association. And they have, I'm going to talk out of turn because I don't know all of the details, but they do appeal to multiple different types of martial arts that you can be kind of registered as part of their recognized clubs, and that your black belt is legitimate under their standards. And so that's one of the stages of drawing together. And I don't know if you've been in touch with them or working with them. Yeah, I missed Duncan's question. Can you?
Duncan is. Oh, it says it's very, very difficult to quantify. Oh, I'll show you how about. There you go.
Yeah, all McDojos we see. Safe places to be. Yeah, so now this is going to get into the definition of a McDojo. So what is a McDojo in your eyes, Phil?
Oh my goodness. You got me started now. A McDojo, oh my goodness. A franchise, they'll put something together where they will literally mark it up, put everything of what they would sort of see together, and then all, like you said, on paper, it looks good on paper. And then you go into the dojo or the establishment, and they'll show you everything of what they, down to a T, to a fine tooth comb, of where the newbie who is totally oblivious to the martial art, and then when they actually go out and they to a position, if they're in a position of where they could be possibly vulnerable, like you mentioned, where they go in there for that particular reason to learn that self-defense, and they're doing these, what would they say, a Master Ken kind of McDojo, and then they end up either injuring themselves or injuring somebody, and they're not even qualified in that position, where you find out it's only just sort of a piece of paper, and then they're not regulated enough. So it comes down to mispromoting what martial arts actually should be. That's what I would say, or misrepresenting the art that they're supposed to be promoting as a McDojo. That's what I would say.
Personally, I think that summary point for me hits the nail right on the head there, and it's about misrepresenting what they actually do. So if what they actually teach is an exercise class with some martial arts looking moves, exercise class with some martial arts looking moves, then that's fine, right? Isn't it? If you go along to that and enjoy doing it, and you get fitter, you make friends, you learn some new skills, you feel a bit more confident about yourself because you've done the other three things. You've learned something brand new. It's just for you. That can be really powerful in empowering someone in their own life. They might stand up a little bit taller. They might be able to breathe more calmly, but they're not actually learning how to fight, or they're not actually learning how to defend themselves. And so the honesty in what is being advertised and marketed compared with what's actually being delivered. So that, to me, if there's a disconnect between those two, particularly if the marketing and advertising is overhyped versus what you actually get, it's the picture of the McDonald's burger versus what actually comes in that box. That is, well, that's why it's the name, isn't it?
This is it.
And with franchises aren't necessarily a bad thing. No. But they can invite characters who have a tendency towards creating a shit burger but a nice poster.
This is it.
And so there are some franchises which have really high quality.
I must admit that.
The downside is they don't grow very fast, and they're not very good for business. Not in the short term. They're good for business in the longer term, but they're not great in the short term. So if you look at, say, CrossFit, right? CrossFit as a franchise, think about it as the original gym. They were teaching people a broad range of fitness movements, putting them together in a game, creating community, creating a sense of competition with other people worldwide and with yourself, with your last week's time, last year's time. That's fantastic. And they were like, whoa, this is great. We should spread this around the world. And while they were growing slowly to start with, they had high quality coaches, and that was all fine. And then they suddenly started exploding, and there was demand for CrossFit gyms everywhere, and they didn't have enough high quality. And so you would end up with coaches who don't really know how to teach people the moves, particularly the dynamic moves like the Olympic lifts and the gymnastic stuff on the rings. And you would find more and more people getting injured really easily because the coach, the franchisee, the one owning the new franchise, they'd know how to do it themselves, but they hadn't taught enough people with different needs, different skills, different start points to understand, I know how to fix that problem. Okay, right. Well, on the clean, we need to practice, ankle extension. That's going to help you. Or on the clean, we need to practice the shrug part, keeping your arms straight. Because if you don't keep your arms straight, there's a risk of tearing your bicep, and so on. But if you don't know that because you've just done a clean and it was kind of natural to you, then you don't know what you don't know. So they suffered from too rapid expansion, and their coach quality went down a long way. It became a meme, as I'm sure you know, of like CrossFit was really popular and fun, but high injury rates. Don't go to a CrossFit gym if you want to get injured. But now I believe that a lot of those kind of early coaches who weren't that great, CrossFit have implemented a much more rigorous instructor training program to bring everyone up to speed. And instead of there being a really varied quality of CrossFit instruction you could get across any of the gyms, then it's now a lot more consistent and a lot better. But in terms of their CrossFit HQ business, that slowed down their growth of new participants, new people paying, and increased their costs of training their instructors. But if they hadn't done that, then the serious reputational damage would have been almost fatal, I think. So they've recovered their reputational damage now, so that they're in the next place to kind of to grow again. And it'd be almost similar with martial arts franchises, but there's no one franchise which has caught that much limelight of being. It used to be good when it was small. It grew too fast, and now people are learning moves way too early that they're not even ready to do. They're being instructed badly. They're injuring themselves, and they believe they can fight and defend themselves when in fact they can't. Because what's the event that brings that out? It's something catastrophic, isn't it? That's
yes.
And like self-defense is a very specific application of martial arts. They're like a Venn diagram, and they have a small overlapping area.
Yes.
I've got anything I can make a Venn diagram with? No. So if you imagine there's one circle and another circle, and this one is martial arts and this is self-defense, and like they overlap kind of like that. And it's basically, all right, see you, Duncan.
No problem, Duncan. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Yeah, it's basically like the most simple, highest percentage actual techniques. That's where the overlap is. And then there'll be some skills and attributes like timing, footwork, balance, distance management, visual and auditory perception, speed, and so on. But then the rest of self-defense is like emotional, it's like planning, it's like first aid skills, it's like the skill of talking to the police.
Yes.
It's dealing with the fallout if you hurt someone. Because, you see the stories in the news of, high level MMA competitor gets stabbed and killed. True. So it can happen to anyone, right?
It's possible.
But I don't know the circumstance of that. I don't know what the setup was, and the setup is the most important bit. Because if it's an ambush, then no one's going to see it coming because it's an ambush. No. If it's from a trusted person, then likewise, because you trust them, they're going to get close to you. Is that more going to be about establishing boundaries? So this is more social violence. This isn't martial arts anymore.
No, that's true.
And then you also see that there will be a martial artist or even a non-martial artist who got in some kind of altercation, punched someone, they fell on the floor and hit their head, and now they've died, and the person doing the punching is in prison, even if they were defending themselves to start with. So it's like, how do you... and again, I don't know the details of those cases, but at what point did it go from self-defense to manslaughter? That's, is that in the appearance of the action? Is that in what the person said before, during, and after? Is that in the way they were interviewed by the police? And what they said in the interview? I don't know if you know, there's a much better authority on self-defense than me, and that's Tommy Joe Moore.
Right.
He's great. And on his YouTube channel, he interviews an ex-policeman, Andrew. Oh, my memory's terrible today. But he interviews an ex-policeman on Tommy's YouTube channel, and it's about how to talk to the police after a self-defense altercation. And that is fascinating, really, really interesting. And it's like nothing to do with martial arts. Wow. So in self-defense, that's all there. So personally, I have a problem with with martial arts schools, dojos, advertising themselves as being learn self-defense, unless they're genuinely a self-protection specialist school.
True. That's true, because then you're this is it, it's misrepresentation, and there's so many different things there. They have to be very, very careful, with things where they're actually saying something and they're promoting something that they're actually not. And this is it, with these things. I think the reason why I didn't bring these up before in my other interviews, because it only when it came about with all these different things happening, I don't want to see martial arts where it's become just a movie, a film, where people come in, oh, look at that, Cobra Kai, hooray, season 6 coming out. you know, and then you got, oh, look at that, you got the Bruce Lee films, you know, and then you got all the martial artists on film, you know, like the John Wick, you know, and then you got things coming out. You got John Wick films, old martial art films coming out, new ones coming out, and things like that. And yeah, it's great. You got martial arts, you got it in film, but I think what I'm sort of my concern is that we don't want martial arts misrepresented as if what you would just see on film. You know, we've got to be realistic where you've got people out there where they do misrepresent us as martial artists, you know, and you got real life martial artists and you got those that would regard themselves as martial artists, and then they're going out and they're getting people out there at the time where I do kind of empathize with the sort of ethical and genuine sort of martial artists that do it as a job and do it part time, you know, work hard at it, and you're promoting it in the right way, you know, part time like yourself, and you've got others that do it full time, you know, all of you all the way across the board. And I think, you know,
now this is a really like nuanced topic as well, because as martial artists and as martial arts instructors, we know exactly what it is, we should know exactly what it is that we teach and in what context it's actually applicable. And in a perfect world, we'd be like brutally honest in our advertising. It goes, here's what you'll learn. Here's how you'll feel afterwards. Here's the transformation it might have in your life. And here's something that my existing students say. Cool. But that can be quite neutral and not very exciting for someone who doesn't yet know martial arts.
Yes.
And because their exposure is stuff that happens on the news and stuff that happens in movies, we got to connect what it is we actually deliver to something that those people understand.
Yeah.
And that is where it is much easier to go, all right, let's fight like Jason Bourne and defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so that immediately connects to members of the public's brain and understanding. Fight like Jason Bourne and defend yourself. Okay. And that sounds cool and sexy and everything, right? But how close is that to same sense has it ever happened before? Yeah, sometimes, Phil, and generally those companies go under.
Yes.
I saw a statistical study on an American company. I can't remember what they were. I think they were like a cosmetics company, and they said, "I no longer want to do sales. I'm never going to do like a Christmas sale, 25% off, or this is this month's new fragrance, 50% off here. Get it now." That kind of sale. And they said, "Look, we're just going to do honest pricing. This is the price. It's always going to be the price. There'll never be a sale. It's the best price we can offer. Off you go." And their revenue, their money in, completely tanked. It went down to like a third of what they were getting before. And the company started panicking and going, okay, look, we tried our best to be honest with you, consumers, members of the public. We tried our best, and it doesn't connect with you. So they've gone back to having higher prices in general, and then occasionally they'll drop the price on some of their products. And they even say, like, look, we tried this honest pricing model and you just didn't like it. It's the same stuff we're selling to the same people, that's you, for less money, honestly, and you didn't buy it. What the hell? So, okay, we're going to say it's $100 and now it's reduced to $80. So there's like marketing psychology is really interesting, and it's counterintuitive in a lot of places where you have to present something that is going to grab the attention of the right person. And it can get a bit Machiavellian, because if you do the wrong thing for the right reasons, is it okay? You know, if I say on my advertising, well, actually, ironically, I will teach you how to fight like Jason Bourne, because those movies are great. The first three, anyway. I say, like, fight like Jason Bourne, defend yourself and become an unstoppable badass. Right. So who doesn't want that? Of course, they get more people in. and then on their way in and go, look, here's how we do it, and this is exactly what we do. So there's a bridge between the attention grabbing bit and what we actually do. If there's no bridge, if I keep that pretense of like learn the unstoppable palm strike that no one can, all attackers will die from this. If I keep that pretense all the way up to the point where they're in the lesson and they're trying to learn the palm strike and they're doing it on me, and I'm like, it's not working. Like, that is the point where I think I'm becoming McDojo. Because then there's like weird elements like gaslighting of going, you're just not doing it hard enough, or you're not learning well enough. And that to me is like the real danger slope of like social boundaries and stuff. How do you treat people? Do you want to make them feel better about themselves or feel worse about themselves? And
no, this is it. No,
but yeah, that is really tough with the
Wayne,
with the advertising part, because to make any ground, like people's brains and their eyes and the information which is being fired at them like a machine gun all day, people are saturated. Like, how are you going to do something that cuts through that noise? Because if you have something genuinely great to offer people, and I believe that most martial arts instructors do, because martial arts is brilliant, and you know that you can help them, they might not know that they need your help yet.
Yeah.
So there's a gap to bridge. So they're on one side of this canyon, you're on the other side, and you know you need to get them onto your side of the canyon. Right? They don't know about. They don't know that stick fighting is the best thing ever because you get to hit your mates. You know, they don't know that yet. They don't know that yet. So you need to meet them where they are on the other side of the canyon, because they might think I need self-defense. Maybe for me a more ethical thing is they need an activity which isn't the gym. It's interesting. They'll learn new skills. They'll make friends. It is fun as hell, and they're getting out of the house. They're going to learn something for themselves, feel good about themselves afterwards. So for me, that is the honest side of that kind of marketing message. So you plant those seeds of, I can understand that. Cool. So they start building their bridge on the side of their canyon. And you start building your bridge from stick fighting is the best thing ever towards them. Why is stick fighting the best thing ever? Cool. Can you meet together in the middle because you're going to make better friends, because you have to trust each other to train together. You have to help each other to be a good training partner. And those who aren't get gradually excluded from the group, get gradually excluded from the fun. There's an example being set by everyone else in the group where we all lift each other up, help each other along, whatever the art is that we're doing. And that way we all feel better about ourselves, and we feel more connected as part of this special group, this special tribe that we have. And that's where the bridge meets in the middle. It just so happens that we're doing stick fighting. There we go.
I'm enjoying this conversation by the second, Harry. You know, I think a lot of the time, most people, you know, the reason why I mention all these different things, they do need to come out in the open, and I think it's quite scary that if they're not boundaries or sanctions been promoted in the right way and channeled to these organizations and bodies, and even for people out there, because, you know, I'm excited for the newbies out there that will be thinking, do you know what, I'm going to try this new thing, and we want to feel like they trust us, you know, rather than sort of the last thing we want is our own reputation as martial artists to be tarnished, you know. And this thing that's going on at the moment, you know, this is only just scratching the surface, Harry, you know, and I'd love to have you to come back on the show again, you know, and there's so much more to talk about other than just sort of these other areas, because I know there's probably a lot more that's involved behind the scenes that people don't even realize, that anyone could even think of, you know, because as yourself as a fellow martial artist, you know, there's a lot, like you said, you know, people don't realize when you're creating content and you're doing things and you're doing it part-time as a parent, as a father, you tend to sort of manage. You do manage it, but there are initial sort of things where you have to go through all these things when you're doing stuff yourself to balance things out. Because we're only human. It's not like as if you're doing it automatically, autonomically. Where in behind the scenes everything just gets done for you. No, it's not as just as it plain
No,
sailing.
exactly. It's just me. That's it. Sometimes
This is it.
I get messages and being like, "Oh, can one of your team sort out this, please?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll just boss him around right now." It's like it's just me. But yeah, it is. It is tough, and it's about and it's about the desire of the outcome. What do you actually want to happen in the end? And I want more people to fall in love with Filipino martial arts, like I have, and in doing that, in thinking about what side of the canyon are they on and what do they understand, then this is where I'll be talking more light-hearted language. I tend to not use a lot of the traditional terms because that's a barrier to understanding, isn't it? So I try and explain things in everyday language, and then occasionally I'll drop in, and this is also called payong or whatever the term is, so I'm building the bridge from their side of the canyon. It's the same with training and sparring with padded sticks and gloves and head guards. So I do get some messages from some of the old school Filipino martial arts teachers who tell me I'm doing it wrong. And in their day, it was much tougher and I should make it tougher. And I think, thank you for noticing. That is exactly what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not watering it down. I'm making the bridge between us closer and closer and closer. And one of my goals is for all other stand-up striking and grappling gyms and schools to have a weapons program.
Yes.
And that weapons program is trained using the same principles that they train their stand-up striking. So if you have a Muay Thai school, okay, cool. They know about drilling. They know about active pad work. They know about sparring. They know about clinch. They know about technical sparring versus hard sparring. And they know about, conditioning. They know about flexibility. You'll be able to take all of those skills and plug that into, and now we also have a weapons program. The first level of the weapons program is you learn how to use it. Next level is you learn how to defend against it because you have that fundamental knowledge. So that's where I'm heading. That's why I use that terminology. That's why I wear the sparkly tights. It's all about attention and differentiation, you see. So
that's great. What I'd like to do, obviously, sort of for future reference and also for a up and coming sort of in the foreseeable future, I'd like to sort of like make it official that I think it'd be great to have you back on, on the Phil Carew show, giving us an update about your activities and events that you're participating. And you did mention, and I mentioned myself as well, in the early sort of part of the conversations that we've had on the show, that you'll be actually doing a workshop and seminar this year at the Festival of Martial Arts, Matt States and Luci Del Guardo. Yeah, Luci Del Guardo, brilliant. You've sort of been able to sort of get in touch with Matt States as well, and be able to do that at the end of June towards the beginning of July. Now, I know it's the first time you'll be participating in this. What was your sort of insight and your view on this, on being able to participate in this? Because it sounds quite exciting to be able to sort of participate in something where it's like a martial arts mixed in with Glastonbury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's part of what appealed to me about it. That it's new way of having a martial arts gathering of multiple different styles. And also that the attitude that Matt states projected from the start is very much like family and kind of fun and inclusively oriented. So the colors on the poster, it's just one example. And I know that he's got a wide range of different instructors there, but all the way through, he's always been encouraging. This is not the kind of thing where you just show up, teach your slot, and then go away again afterwards. This is, we all train on each other's mats and we all learn from each other. And I think that's a great approach because everyone has something to offer.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's really what attracted me to it this year. And I've had like a lot of invitations to do things and to work on collaborative projects and all sorts of stuff like that. And these last 2 years they're a real season of no for me, or not yet. Because like you say, I've got quite a few things happening, and already I don't have much of a social life outside of my own classes and after that. And so it's wonderful being invited to a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, I have to say no to a lot of it, because if I spread my efforts too thin, then none of it really goes anywhere. So my real core focus is on building up the people that I can share Filipino martial arts with, and that's via my website, fightdad.com. Go check it out now. Get the free courses. There we go. Okay, advertising slot done. But that's via that, and there's one thing on there where you can join like a monthly thing, and you get all of my lesson plans and all the videos that go with each of those lesson plans. And there's about hey Matt.
Hi Matt.
And
Matt Chapman.
There's something really kind of crazy and unexpected happening that it sounds so weird when I say it out loud, that I've got martial arts instructors all over the world teaching my classes to their students, which is as cool as fuck, to be honest. I never thought that would happen. And that is honestly the thing that I want to expand. They're not kind of branded as being my Harry Flexman's classes. They're effectively, here's a cool lesson plan, take it, tweak it how you want to, teach it how it's written, take parts and ideas and make your classes even more awesome. And so your students love it even more, tell their friends, and stay training with you forever. And you have fun as an instructor and they have fun as students, and you all feel good. And that's, it's quite a humbling thing to be part of. So that's where my focus is right now. If you want to join me on that, that'd be awesome. It's called Coaching Kali. If you got any questions, get in touch. My contact details are all on the website. But it's a crazy thing to think about. And very cool to see Matthew Chapman on there. He's a great help. So thanks, Matthew.
Actually mentioning that, I think it's great, because what I'd like to sort of let everybody know, there's the newbies there, they're not even aware of it, non-martial artists and other sort of new martial artists. We've all got close links to each other that some other newbies are not even aware of. You've also got Bob Breen, Bob Breen, Matt Chapman, and yourself, where you've actually got a martial arts with involvement where all of you are integrated as one, as part of the martial arts community. I wasn't aware of this until I did a bit more digging, and Bob Breen on one of my previous episodes was actually participating in part of a choreography with he helped choreograph with
Deadpool, isn't it?
It was the Batman. He helped choreograph with the actual. There's a new one coming out.
Pattinson.
That's it. Robert Pattinson, and he actually helped choreograph with that. And he said, "Oh wow, my goodness! I didn't even realize until I looked back. I thought, yes, it was you, Bob. And then there was some other seminars and some workshops. I know he's got links with Matt Chapman as well. They do their training together, and even yourself as well. Matt Chapman. We're in our circles of martial arts. Along that way with our sort of martial arts community, we're all linked to each other, and it's great. It's great to hear that we've got a lot of people there where we're all sort of rooting for each other. Most of us that sort of help each other through our martial arts. I know I tend to sort of, you do get, I'm not gonna lie, but you do get politics out there. I don't get involved in it, and unfortunately there are things out there that happen, and like I mentioned before, there's certain stuff there. Those who've only just tuned in, we've been mentioning about stuff about making sure there's no students and instructors left in a vulnerable position. And no doubt Harry and amongst other sort of fellow martial artists along the way, I will be contacting some governing bodies at some point. At some point, after we've spoken. It is one of those things that need to be done, because I think there's so many things that fall through the net so easily. I know there's DBSs and CRBs and stuff like that people have, and then they go, oh well, we didn't know this. This was an X person was X and X and Y of this and so of that, and then you think, well, why were they let back in then? And why were they able to do that? Because within the realms of the martial arts community, we can only do what we were able to do. The rest is to say, for those other people that are involved in these governing bodies to be able to say, right, no, enough is enough. We want you struck off. You can't come back, and which is only fair enough to say, as a parent and as a father, Harry, other people that weren't aware of this, we're having this discussion, and I think we both felt strongly that there should be something done, and no doubt, I'll contact you at some point, Harry and some other fellow martial artists about this, because I think it'll probably be a big thing. Because there's so many things people hear about it on the news. It's not just the news, even like across people talk about it. And look at that. There was a discussion there. I'm trying to remember where it was. It was, that's right. It was Craig Thompson, a fellow martial artist as well in the karate sort of.
Yeah, I know Craig too. He's a good guy.
Yeah, and Craig Thompson mentioned that there was something with the lines of, it was quite controversial actually. It was a young lad. I'm not going to go into too much detail just to make sure, the audience that's out there around this time. But it was Sambo art, and the young boy there, and I think there were some other stories as well of some other martial arts where, unspeakable stuff these things that are happening to these people or children or anything like that. They should not be in these positions, and these people that are held responsible for being an instructor or at this high, especially at this high level, and they should be struck off. I truly feel they should be struck off, and once they've been struck, they should never go back to martial arts. It's too much. It's dangerous, and these people have got this power in their hands. They've got this immense power where they can manipulate and use it to their advantage and for the wrong reasons, and
we kind of touched on both elements of that. And when we were talking about this earlier in the conversation, that was, in my head at least, that was more about the kind of emotional and social position of power that they have, and that's the kind of insidious manipulation elements. But with the case of the Sambo instructor, that's very much the physical power.
Yes, as well,
position of power, because not only was that the instructor, but it's an adult and a kid. It's just, I don't quite understand how that happened. I saw the same incident that was reported on, I think it was reported on McDojo Live, and it was pretty hard to watch. It's one of those things where I kind of wish I hadn't. Well, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't go looking for it.
Well, the thing is, Harry, I'm glad I've sort of put these points out on there, and I value your time and efforts that you've made, and I appreciate this, because I think something like that, as a parent and as a father, like I said before, in previous conversation, I think most people out there in the martial arts industry in the world, who have these type of values, because martial arts isn't about just combat and self-defense. There are key principles of there, as myself as a fellow martial artist in the FMA, as you would know, with as a fellow FMA practitioner, we all have these values that we try to promote out there in the right way, and our own ethics, because it isn't just about, I even tried to promote this, and a good example and impression on my eldest son, and say, well, look, these values and these things, with being dedicated to it, discipline, all of that aspect, and the sort of dedication and motivation of all these different things, but being able to sort of interpret those values to other people, doesn't always fall upon, sometimes it falls on deaf ears. You do get these things that fall through the net. And I think, for future reference, for those martial artists out there, I know that can relate to this. I think I'm not even going to mention any more details about it, but I think because we all feel strongly about it on the same wavelength, I think, it's fair enough to say that if I'm able to start something myself and get everyone sort of following through that on the same page, it'll be great, because then, we all know that there'll be something that, at least there's something there that can get the ball rolling to be able to protect that. Because, if there's any form of regulatory thing for everything else, why not martial arts?
It'd probably be sensible to check out what people like British gymnastics are doing, because gymnastics has that similar social and emotional position of power, as well as the physical position of power, because you could be potentially teaching someone a move which is dangerous if you teach them badly, or if it's too early. So that could be a decent kind of setup structure to look into how they do it, basically. That might be a good shout. But yeah, thinking about those values and the moral element, it's like, what is the best way of transferring that to someone else? And is it through leading by example? Is it through setting up your activity where people who display the characteristics of those morals have a greater chance of success? It's probably helpful. Is it through yelling at people? That's not my style.
No.
No. Is it through having I've seen some classes where people have like an affirmation as part of their salute at the start and end of class, and that could be helpful, maybe, but it needs to be backed up with all of the other elements too. And
of course, yeah.
And I'm a big believer of autonomy for my students, and I teach adults. I don't teach kids, so this may need a bit of tweaking if you're teaching children. But that idea of autonomy and empowerment to make their own choices, but for you to set up the environment, the game, the activity, such that the desirable choices give a better chance of success at the activity. So if you're saying to adults, right, the goal of this martial arts exercise is to not get hit and not get stuck in the corner. But really what you want them to do is keep their awareness of what their surroundings are and develop lateral footwork. So you don't say, be aware of your surroundings, develop lateral footwork. You just say what the goal is. And so people who naturally have increased awareness of their surroundings and better lateral footwork, or improve their lateral footwork, will do better at the game. And rather than spoon feeding your students, okay, now do A, now do B, now do C, you say, we'll set up the game, and that's the outcome that we want. We've isolated these elements, and that's the outcome that we want. And either people find it themselves and feel really smart about themselves because they're like, yeah, this week when I had better awareness, I didn't run into the other partners who were behind me. Or this week when I thought really strongly about my lateral footwork, I never got stuck in the corner. They solved the problem themselves. That's empowerment, isn't it? That's your own decision. You're much more likely to stick with that decision. Whereas if someone just tells you what to do and you're like, oh yeah, it kind of worked, it's not nearly as deep and impactful. So I think if we're looking at the moral and values thing, then that for me is going to be a better way of setting it up. So if you overtly reward and celebrate others in front of everyone else, then they're more likely to copy what you do and feel good about themselves because they decided to do it, rather than, okay, everybody, you must all sing happy birthday because it's Steve's birthday today, or whatever it is. You just start, people join in. And if they don't, you make it awkward by singing louder and longer.
Oh yeah, that's true, Philip. Regulation is often minimalism. Everyone thinks it's a great idea, just not for them.
Oh yeah, I don't need regulating for them. That's just everyone else does. That's fine.
Yeah, I think it's good to have it though in place because for those where you've got people like I mentioned in the previous conversation, those that have only just tuned in, in the Field Carew Show 2.0. I think it is important because like you mentioned, like with the gymnastics thing, there's so many different things, and I think it's to protect those. It doesn't even have to be a child. It can be, but I think that was an example though. If an instructor's able to do that, not just an emotional attachment, but also the physical and psychological, everything. Everything you put into one sort of situation like that, I think is vitally important to start sort of something now where, to stop things from happening, because there's so many different aspects from across the world. It doesn't matter where they are. If there's a governing body or something there where they'll say, well, look, because everyone's free to do whatever they feel what they want, because they think, oh, we're not held. There's no loophole. There's no this. There's no that. There's no law. There's no this. There's no that. And that's what I think the beauty of it is, to be able to create something and put something in place and say, look, stop. Enough is enough. We don't want you here. We don't want that type of behavior. It's misrepresenting martial arts across the board. And we want people to be able to have the freedom of being able to teach the way they want to without having, these minority of people that do these things, unspeakable stuff, whether if it's psychological, physical, any form of sort of contact, whether it's like even a sexual thing, anything like that, anything bad that's not ruling involving the martial arts, that shouldn't be happening. And I think overall, Harry, I'm pretty happy with most of the things that we've covered actually, and I think there'll be a lot more in the foreseeable future for like updating with all these great things. Just a few sort of before you go, just a couple of questions. What I want to ask, I think it's like, other than the martial arts, how did it feel like for you? Having the sort of responsibility of being a parent and as a father away from the martial arts. Was there any dynamics that have changed there as a parent as well as being a martial artist?
I've sparred 2 rounds with a 6-time heavyweight world champion Muay Thai and K1 fighter who I don't think he was going light on me, and I still carried the knee injury from the leg kicks he was giving me. But becoming a dad was the most terrifying thing I've ever done.
Wow. Yeah.
I've almost been in 2 car crashes where time slowed down. The adrenaline dump was that strong. Thankfully, I didn't actually crash, and still I guess it was the unexpected arrival of responsibility. And I have no idea what it's like for anyone else or for mothers, because as a mother, you gradually, I say gradually, you feel the changes in your body over the 9 months, and
Yeah.
I believe, and so there may be more of a gradual reality awakening. But for me, as a dad, it wasn't really real until I was holding him in my arms,
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
and
Yeah.
both of them almost died in the birth, and I
Oh,
think that probably
bless you.
accentuated the sudden onrush of responsibility.
Mm.
And so that was terrifying. And it
Oh,
was, I think it was coupled with the feeling of helplessness,
mm.
particularly as at that point, I was pretty good as a martial artist. It's
Yeah.
like I was in charge of where my school was going. People were coming along and signing up. People saying nice things about me, all that stuff that inflates our ego. It's a weird thing to say, but like adults pay me money to teach them how to fight. That's quite cool, to be honest. It's quite cool, right? I was in that position where, like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm in control of everything, and then suddenly
Mm.
there was this like 48
Yeah.
hours where I was in complete free fall, completely helpless, had
Yeah.
no control over what was going to happen, and then landed with this massive responsibility, which was terrifying.
I bet. Yeah.
Thankfully, that feeling didn't last very long. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
the responsibility is still there,
Yeah.
but
Of course. Yes.
and now that my life is almost completely rotated, not only am I used to it, but it's actually great. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, brilliant.
So, but yeah, there's some really, as I'm sure you know, some really big changes about just the practical stuff, like about free time. What is free time anymore? I don't understand.
Yeah. Tell me about it. You
Yeah,
grab it while you can, Harry. When you've got it, it's like gold dust, isn't it?
exactly. So we make the most of it. So I really appreciate you being here too, because I know we've chatted offline, and it can be a challenge for both of us. And I appreciate that, Phil. That's really cool.
No problem,
No,
mate.
yeah,
You're great, Harry. Just to let everyone know, we've got our own struggles and our own sort of challenges. And Harry, hats off to you, my friend. A fellow martial artist, great dad, and I think we've got a few things in common as well. I think my partner and my middle son as well. They it was quite emotional as well. So it kind of put a little bit of a frog in my throat when you mentioned, so I can relate. With your partner and your son. So and this
and
is why,
they're both okay now. By the way, it's
yeah,
it's
of
all right
course,
now.
yeah. This is what I mean. But I think when you can relate to something like that, it's odd. It's not like people say, "Oh yeah, it's one of those things that happens." No, when you can relate to something, to people like that, whether if the things that have happened, you can relate as a parent. Regardless of what situation, you can still empathize as a parent. I think it's, with me, I put my hands up to it. I didn't know when there'd be like situations with my aunt and uncle, with my cousins. And then there was one thing that my aunt said to me and my mum. They said, when you become a parent, you'll understand the dynamics of change. There'll be something within you. I mentioned this to someone as well, even to some of those sort of who become like new parents as well. There's sudden shift of something within us, regardless if you're a mother or a father. There's a dynamics of our life where it just suddenly just shifts. It just something within us. It just clicks, and we become different. It's like we've evolved into something else. For what we were, and then part of us think, "Wow, what happened to us?" The other day, a few hours ago, we were just ourselves as two individuals, a couple, and then now we have another little person in our lives, and it does change you, and for the better, obviously, in that sort of better word.
There
I think,
can there can be there's a real risk of that change being so upsetting
yeah,
that we focus on the death of our old life
yes,
and mourn. We need time to like mourn the death of our old life,
yeah, that's it.
because for now it is gone, or at least it should be. If you're going to be a good parent,
That's it.
You should be dedicating your resources, time, energy, money, love, all that stuff. You should be dedicating your resources to the new person in your life because they fucking deserve it. And so it's the middle of the afternoon because they deserve it.
Yeah,
and it was your hopefully your choice to bring them into the world to a cherished, loving environment. And so temporarily, your old life might have to die. And that's hard to deal with, and can lead to bouts of depression and difficulty. So if anybody watching or listening knows of a new parent and you haven't heard from them for 2 or 3 weeks, just drop them a message and just say, hey, how's it going? Because that might make all the difference in the world to them. It's going to take you 10 seconds, but it might just be the light that they need in that moment, because they may be 3 weeks into, 3-4 weeks post birth. So they've had their 2 weeks of, parental leave, and they've gone back to work, and the people at work are just the same. So that's an anchor to your old life, which is dead now. You're just about, like in your head, you're still living the old life, but in reality, you're not. So there's a huge disconnect happening. And that is, for me at least, that was the biggest period of adjustment. And a lot of me wanted to be left alone. But those who did reach out to me in that time, I really needed it. So if you can offer that to someone else that you know who's a new parent, or even if they're not a new parent.
Yeah, it's true.
Not heard from a mate. Just a quick message. You all right, mate? Everything okay? Can make all the difference in the world.
Good shout, Harry. That's a good message to send out there, because this isn't just martial arts. I thought I'd mention this. It's great that Harry's promoting this as well. All the different things that not a lot of people realise this. It wasn't just all martial arts, you see. So we've had a good mixture of different stuff here that we've mentioned.
Yeah, we've got to remember as well the terrifying, fantastic. Exactly, Duncan. Exactly, mate.
Yes.
What else have we touched on as well today? Don't forget the lettering on UK road signs, best in the world.
Right, what I'll do, just because I know Harry, bless him, just to get him, make sure that he gets a bit of him time when he can, and I think he's got a little bit of fraction of that back at the moment while being on the show, on the Phil Carew Show 2.0. But I would love to it's official out there. I'm just throwing this out there to Harry Flexman, Fight Dad. I'd love to have you back on the Phil Carew Show 2.0. Do you know what? This is a great show that I've had today, with all the different things that we've spoke about today, and I am going to be going into this thing. I haven't stopped, and I did speak to other people. Yes, Daz, there's a shout out to you as well. Daz Stirat Renchi, for the Hampshire Academy of Shotokan Karate. Just to sort of mention that these things that we mentioned earlier, Harry, I think it'd be great if I can sort of speak to you, later on, and even some other fellow martial artists all the way across the board, to be able to do something now, with these different things that we mentioned about the other sort of raised topics with a regulatory thing and stuff like that. What I would do is, just before we go, don't forget to check out Harry Flexman, Fight Dad. I will have something, a link sort of attached to this later on, to make sure you can sort of see what he does.
Thanks so much, Phil. Two places I invite people to go. If you want to stay on Facebook, go to the Fight Dad Tribe Facebook group. It's lovely in there. We all support each other. We talk about martial arts. We talk about fitness and weightlifting. We celebrate each other's wins and lift each other up. It's really great in there. So actually, only go there if you're nice. And the second place to go is fightdad.com. Got 2 free courses on there. There's one on stick fighting. There's one on the Filipino Martial Arts flow drill called Hubert, and you can build your own structure off that as a partner thing. And they're yours. Welcome to them. I hope you get a lot from them. Thanks.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and don't forget, Harry Flexman Fight Dad is also on YouTube. So just don't forget he's a fellow YouTuber as well as myself. No, it's great. It's been a real honor, Harry, and I'd love to have you back, and I can't wait to hear some updates of what you're up to and some other things. Actually, one of the last things I wanted to ask you, just sort of leave on a less somber and happy sort of funny note, just for those viewers and those that have tuned in and have only just tuned in now, is what is the funniest moment you can recall at the moment, that you've had, whether it's martial arts or non-martial arts?
Wow, that's quite a question. I don't think I can pin down one, but it's got to be. It sounds super cheesy, but it's got to be laughing with my kids. It's as their language and understanding develops, and they hear something but mispronounce it, and it comes out as something completely different.
Oh yeah! Oh my!
And the stupid thing is, like, if I retell it now word for word, no one else would find it funny. It's one of those situational things where. So I'm afraid that was a terrible segment. I'm really sorry for ruining a hilarious segment on the show, Phil. But it's when the syllables get mixed up and it's something totally different. It's just
I think my partner and I and some other people that I know with their children have done the same thing, and I think I kind of I understand where you're coming from, Harry.
Well,
I think most parents when they come, yeah.
My 3-year-old daughter, bless her, she's fiercely independent, definitely a three-nager. And we recently gave her some popcorn to try. She was like, "Oh, Daddy, I want more cock porn."
Oh dear. Oh dear.
And you hear that internally, I'm like laughing my ass off, basically. But as you know, if you react to something, it gets attention drawn to it, and you shape the behavior of others by what you pay attention to. And so if she found that funny, or she saw me finding that funny, she'd say it more and more and more. So I was like, "Oh yeah, certainly you can have some more." And then I'm thinking, I got to say it the right way around now. Can you have some more popcorn, darling? Here you are, help yourself. So that's
No, that's no. You're right, because I think with other children there, I have to sort of it. I don't know how most people would react when certain people. I think when their child is in public and they're actually saying certain things in front, and you don't know, you think, you as the parent, you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, how the heck am I going to?" And then most people, because they're parents themselves, they go, "Look, it just goes over their head." But to us as the parent, it's totally different, because we're exactly, we're like, "Oh my goodness," you just don't know where to put your face, how to position your face or where to look, and you think, "Oh my goodness." Instant embarrassment as and that's part of us, as a process and the journey as a parent, and even as the child, when you tell them later years and you mention those things, they'll try and deny and go, "No, I didn't do that, did I?" And then
say that. No.
Exactly, and then you as a dad, and then your wife will turn around and say, "Well, actually, yes, you did." And they're like, "Oh my goodness!" But it's odd, isn't it, because of what they are as children. Anyway, folks, thank you very much, and it's a real humbling honor to actually have you, Harry Flexman, Fight Dad, on the Phil Carew Show 2.0, and it's a pleasure, and it'd be a great honor to have you back on the Phil Carew Show 2.0 in the foreseeable future.
Thanks so much, Phil. I'd love that too, and thanks for today, being fantastic.
Thank you very much, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to comment and like and share. And if you want some more information, don't forget to click on the link that I'm going to get some more information from Harry on there on my link. What I'll do is later on, if you want to go directly to his site, I will have a link and some other details from him. I have got some other bits and pieces from himself, but I will add it onto my page. And then he'll also sort of share some information about himself as well. So if you're not sure about anything and you've got any questions or anything and got comments and suggestions, feel free to comment on here on the video afterwards. Those who haven't tuned in on the replay, and then Harry will be more than welcome, I'm sure, to be able to answer some questions in his own time. Because obviously, yep, he is, as it says on here, it does exactly what it says on the tin. Fight Dad. Yes, he is a parent, like myself, like with most of you out there. But as most people are, when you do something part time, we only do what we can. On there, that's only the best that you can do. I think most of you guys out there that understand, as well as those, when you're doing something like this, feel free to tap in something, as long as it's positive and it's nice, and it's constructive. Feel free to leave a comment, and we'll both get back to you as earliest as we can. Thank you very much, Harry Flexman, Fight Dad. It's been a humbling experience for me, and even just having these sort of discussions with you. And I'm sure we'll see you very, very soon on the Phil Carew Show 2.0. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, Phil. Take care, man.
Take care, everybody. Take care. Bye for now.